This isn't about an axe to grind because Webb has broken some SEAL code of silence, or because he has publicly profited off the SEAL brand.
Between Chris Kyle, Marcus Luttrell, Mark Cohen, Rob O'Neill, Kevin Lace, Jocko Willink, Brent Gleason, Eric Greitens, and several other SEALs, any semblance of quiet professionalism has vanished. The public SEAL genie isn't going back in the bottle. The fundamental question is then, why make this video at all? Webb constantly deflects the truth by attacking his critics. He recently wrote,
"What causes former teammates to create drama on social media and other public outlets, as if they were still in junior high school? I don't know, it baffles me. The common themes seem to be that this behavior comes from a toxic mix of professional jealousy, and a desperate attempt at relevancy in individuals who are not at a good place in their lives."
It's not about relevancy, or professional jealousy. Some of us make a lot more money and carry much greater responsibilities than Webb. This video is necessary because Brandon Webb is a pathological liar, and people continue to fall victim to him. In the spirit of no fake news, facts and videos must be shown, that Webb cannot selectively delete just because they are disastrous to him. Webb is currently attempting to establish another largely false, personal narrative, transitioning from his initial, amazing SEAL sniper operator narrative, which suckered everyone in, to that of, citizen of the world, sophisticated businessman, truth seeker and truth teller. Webb's move is somewhat akin to Jackie Walij, the 95-year-old New Yorker recently deported to Germany, after he was found out to be a former Nazi SS soldier in 1943, who escaped to New York and rebranded himself as a draftsman. Law enforcement was quoted as saying,
"He's not 95 years old. He's a 20-year-old murderer who got away with it for 75 years.
Somewhat similarly, Brandon Webb is not the honest, forthright, loyal, or sophisticated business person that he continues to portray. There are only two ways that Webb can respond to the items presented here. Option A, ignore them. Don't give them any attention, and hope that they just fade away into obscurity. Option B, attempt to discredit these items by attacking the motives of this video, rather than the actual facts themselves.
They're all jealous of me. They're in a bad place in their own lives. They're criminals, and drunks, or whatever."
Either way, one thing is for sure, the small circle of Webb supporters, Soft Rep Mafia, that have been his keystroke bodyguard since his jump into the public eye, will come out ranting and raving. To the so-called Soft Rep Mafia folks, your predictable and repetitive defenses are nothing more than the manifestation of bruised egos, because admitting fault isn't easy. In true Webb fashion, much easier to deny everything and make counter-accusations, right? Yes. You got duped. Yes. You were gullible. Yes. You lack critical analysis. Yes. You wasted your own time. And yes. This all sucks to admit. Show some integrity. Correct yourself, and move on. And Murphy, you call yourself an investigative journalist. Shameful.
In 2015, NBC nightly news anchor, Brian Williams, was eventually fired when it was determined that he had fabricated many stories he told over the years, including a claim that he was shot down by rocket fire during an Iraqi reporting trip. Always the opportunist, Webb immediately penned an editorial in which he stated,
"It's one thing to embellish for the sake of storytelling. But to flat out lie about serious events in what appears to be a narcissist-fueled campaign of self-indulgence, when you are a trusted news correspondent, is unacceptable, and a career-ending activity."
This blatant hypocrisy by Webb was the last straw. He overplayed his hand by trying to take advantage of a situation to bolster his own credibility. In his first book, The Red Circle, Brandon literally starts with a combat story filled with self-glorifying, and completely false details. It was a shameful self-promotion stunt, really stolen valor, trying to capture some of the fervor from Marcus Luttrell's Lone Survivor franchise, and Chris Kyle's book, American Sniper, which had just been published 3 months prior.
Brandon Webb cashed in on my son's fame when he was alive, and he's tried to do the same since his death. He's a coattail rider. A leech. A guy who attaches himself to famous people and then rides it as far as he can. After Chris finally decided to read Brandon's book, my son even called Webb a liar.
These are Brandon's exact words as printed on pages 1 through 3 of his non-fictional book.
4 of us, Cassidy, Osman, Brad, and me, went out before dawn to patrol a site where a C-130 gunship had engaged some forces the night before, to see if we could find any bodies. Before we could do any serious searching, we heard voices coming from some nearby caves. The four of us instantly hit the ground and waited. As we watched, a group of enemy fighters, 20 of them at least, and all arms started pouring out of a cave above us. We would have to call in an airstrike, and do it fast. There was a B-52 nearby. Brad got it on the radio. It was my job to give him the coordinates. Those 20 plus Al-Qaeda, or Taliban, or who the hell knew, were trickling down the slope heading straight for our position. They hadn't seen us yet, but it would be only seconds before they did. If we were going to do this thing, it had to be now.
Brandon.
Cassidy hissed.
You need to Kentucky windage this drop.
Kentucky windage is a term that means basically this: wing it. Give it your best shot. I gave Cassidy a bearing I estimated as 100 meters past the group. There were a few alarmed shouts and then the sounds of small arms fire. There is nothing quite so galvanizing as a distinct crack, snap, of semi-automatic weaponry being fired over your head, the crack being the sound of the initial shot and the snap being the bullet breaking the sound barrier as it zings past you. We returned fire. I sighted one guy wearing a black headdress, dropped him. Quickly recited and dropped a second, this one wearing the traditional Afghan wool roll-up hat. I sighted a third, then glanced up and saw vapor trails in the sky. The B-52 was flying so high it was invisible to us, but I knew exactly what was happening up there. They were dropping the first bomb. Brad got the call, we were seconds from impact. We opened our mouths, dropped, and drilled.
Over time, Webb was inundated with criticisms about his completely false and exceptionally self-glorifying stories, particularly with the introductory tale in his first book. Increasingly under pressure about many of his claims, some 5 years later after the original publication, Webb eventually conceded that he was outright lying, again, without actually admitting that he was lying. On July 21, 2017 on SoftRep Webb wrote,
"The facts are these. In 2001 to 2002, I participated in multiple combat missions in Afghanistan. While on an extended operation near the Zawar-Kili Cave Complex, right by the Afghanistan-Pakistan border, my SEAL squad encountered a number of enemy combatants in the hills during a C-130 BDA patrol. We were cleared to engage by ROIC Cassidy, just as a round of bombs was about to drop. Several of us did so. Moments later the first round of JDAMs hit, slightly off the target. Moments later, a second round of JDAMs scored a direct hit and completely eliminated the enemy forces." End of event.
If Webb was actually asked to give B-52 coordinates, he would own it. If there was actually a firefight, Webb would own it. And certainly if Webb was personally responsible for dropping 2 enemy combatants, he would own it. It was all a lie. Bottom line, Brandon Webb is not a man of integrity. He's a con artist, and a self-admitted opportunist. In Webb's 2015 interview with Men's Journal magazine, he even boasted,
"Right now the SEALs are having their moment, and I intend to ride this wave as far as I can."
Webb also self-diagnosed on Twitter,
"I stand by the statement 100%, not all SEALs are good guys."
Agreed. And Mr. Webb, you are most definitely not one of the good SEALs. As one simple example, notwithstanding your compulsive lying, you even publicly stated about the wives of service members killed in action.
"There is a small and sad group of soft widows who cannot move on. They drink too much, pop pills like Tic Tacs, sleep around, and use military charities as their own personal ATM. They like to stir up drama to remain relevant."
Mr. Webb, you are a shameful and disgraceful representative of the SEAL community, the veteran community, the journalist community, and the writers community. We understand that self-preservation is above all else to you, but have you no sense of personal dignity?
If Webb is the stand-up guy that he projects himself to be, why has he not elicited support for himself, or his books, by a single SEAL teammate that was actually with him during his sole deployment to Afghanistan? Not one, despite the platoon being comprised of NASA astronauts, SEAL Team 6 members, current operational SEALs, entrepreneurs, and so on. Not one supports or backs Webb.
For a self-proclaimed SEAL guru, Webb's reputation is about as poor as it gets. Even retired Master Chief David Cooper stated,
"I can say the guys who are at SEAL Team 6, who know and served with Brandon Webb, Don't think highly of him. Honestly, I haven't come across anyone who does.
Webb's foray into writing was not out of some passion to express himself, or to chronicle his story for his children. It was actually the derivative of a cover-up scheme, on the heels of a failed business. Any port in a storm, right, Mr. Webb?
Yeah, I was in the caves hunting bad guys in Afghanistan when my son was born, so, those situations happen. I don't regret serving the country. I would do it all over again, but, that was a big reason I wrote this book, was to harness and record all these life lessons and stories for my own family, so later on in life they can pick up a book and go, okay, that's why Dad wasn't at Little League, at my Little League game on Saturday. He was out doing meaningful stuff to protect the country.
Fast forward 5 years, and in 2017, Webb wrote an article called Embrace the Suck, where he described how back in 2010 during his pre-writing life, a number of awful truths, his words, were once published on the internet about him and his then sham business, and he didn't know how to get rid of them. Webb wrote,
I had to do something about all of these awful truths being published about me, but I had no idea what. A friend of mine told me how these things work. I couldn't get this crap taken down, but what I could do was push it off the first page of search results by putting up a whole lot more content related to my name. So I did. I started churning out content, releases, short articles, mini essays, anything I could think of to push that ridiculous smear material off the first page. In the process, I discovered I really enjoyed writing. A lot.
Webb's writing all started as a way for him to hide his ugly background. Today, his writing, if you can call it that, is nothing more than regurgitated content, meant to generate traffic to grab advertising revenue. No substance. No integrity. No humility. Just clickbait garbage, as hollow as its parent.
Webb is a perpetual liar, ranging from the mundane to the extraordinary. Here's a more innocuous example.
I went to the search and rescue program. I spent a couple years there, and then got orders to SEAL training, class 215, and started. I made it through the first time, and checked into SEAL Team 3, and started my career in the SEAL teams there.
And how long were you actually in the SEALs?
Just over 10 years. Just over 10 years. Just over 10 years as a SEAL.
Webb is not a successful businessman, contrary to what he conveys on social media and other mediums. However, Webb is definitely a sophisticated businessman, in the same way that Bernie Madoff is. Every single business that Webb has touched has ultimately failed. Let's get into them.
Webb has epically failed at every business he has touched. Channel Islands Tactical, Neptunic Technologies, Military.com, Wind0 Group, SoftRep. While still on active duty, Webb founded Channel Islands Tactical in October of 2002. As the sole owner, he even lied them by writing on his website,
Channel Islands Tactical is owned and operated by former SEALs, and all lead instructors have been honorably discharged from the U.S. Navy.
Regardless, Channel Islands Tactical amounted to literally nothing, until it was eventually suspended by the California Franchise Tax Board for non-payment of fees. Webb desperately wanted in on the tactical training money that started in 2002, for Blackwater and other similar training companies. His tactical training company generated nearly $0 throughout its entire 5-year existence, despite the heyday years 2002 to 2006. CIT didn't procure a single government contract. CIT didn't acquire a single commercial contract. CIT didn't secure a single private client. So as he commonly does, Webb quietly slinked away from CIT, appointed a friend's wife as the president, and allowed the company to merely exist, until it was eventually suspended by the California Franchise Tax Board.
The failure of Channel Islands Tactical, coupled with the ongoing success of other tactical training companies who were building training facilities, Webb started a new company, this time with a proposed facility. Wind0 Group. Typical Webb, he displayed both his penchant for embellishment and outright lying, even again about his background in his own investor pitch deck. The claim this time? Now, 13 years as a Navy SEAL. This was only the start.
Webb spent the next 5 years as the consummate conman, trying to get Wind0 Group up and running, at any cost. Lying to everyone about virtually everything. Suckering investors and business associates with song and dance routines and then squandering their money. Eventually he was sued and lost. And displaying the business acumen of a 3-year-old. Witnessing the real Webb, even his close friend, co-founder, and former SEAL teammate, resigned from Wind0 Group a mere 9 months after it started.
In 2017, Webb attempted to rewrite the epic failure of Wind0 Group in his lackluster book, Total Focus. In typical Webb fashion, always a victim, he blames Wind0's failures entirely on circumstances and other persons outside of his control, and patently lies throughout. These are Webb's own words.
A few years earlier, when I was pushing hard on Wind0, a website sprang up protesting our project. Apparently, there was a groundswell of opposition from the community. I say apparently because it was all a smokescreen. Turned out, the community had nothing to do with it. The whole thing was fabricated by a jealous former SEAL who considered himself my rival. Soon after the community protest site went up, an anti-Brandon video showed up online, cobbling together bits and pieces of sound bites from interviews I'd done, all stitched together to make it sound as if I'd said things I hadn't actually said at all. No surprise, it was that same X-Seal, playing a card from the politician's election cycle dirty tricks deck.
So Webb's conclusive position is that, 1. The opposition to his company was nothing more than a mere fabrication concocted by some jealous rival. 2. The community actually wasn't opposed to Webb's company at all. 3. The so-called anti-Brandon video was cleverly stitched together to quote, make it sound as if Brandon had said things he hadn't actually said at all, end quote. Clearly a revisit of some of the videos is necessary.
If you folks want to go ahead and start getting your food, go on ahead. And Brandon Webb, who's the CEO of Win Zero, is going to come on up and with a couple of his associates, I guess, and start the presentation.
I made the decision about 1.5 years ago to get out and start a company with a friend of mine who was also in the Navy and out running a business. He said, hey, let's look into this and start writing a business plan around a facility. So that's who I am and who Win Zero is. We really found out real quick that this type of facility was not going to be built by us in San Diego. We just didn't have the money to do it. The money, and when we started looking at the land in San Diego, a lot of concerns around the environment. Right? We really took that into consideration to the point where we said maybe we should start looking in Imperial Valley or other places outside of San Diego that would be less affected by this type of facility. We are truly sensitive to the environment. I've been personally a member of the Sierra Club for a while now, and I joined as a company. And believe me, when you spend time in the military, having that membership comes with problems. So we.
It doesn't sound like it because it's already said that it's happening.
My name is Jeanette Hartman, and I chair the Land Use Committee of the Sierra Club. Mr. Webb, first of all, you were a member of the Sierra Club briefly from 2004 to 2005. You're not a member now, and you haven't been a member for a long time.
Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I don't agree with a lot of what you said, and I spoke with Cheryl, and you're correct. I had a membership 2004, 2005, and the company holds membership right now in good standing. And Cheryl, it was when
we are investigating to determine if a company can even join the Sierra Club. You lie so much, you lie continuously. We don't let corporations join the Sierra Club.
We have a driving or road track that would be well suited for it's a driver's education emergency vehicle track, a city track that is well suited for also the law enforcement training right now. I spoke with Chief Obesa over 1 year ago, and the driving facilities are in high demand in Southern California, period. There's no tracks that are available locally, and especially for driving clubs and like the Porsche driving club or the BMW driving club that would come out on the weekend and use something like that as well. Because the last thing we want to do is put in a big noisy facility that's going to block the view.
Well, the tracks where they're riding, that will create noise.
The plan is to eliminate virtually all the noise altogether. So
that's your plan, but I don't see how you can eliminate all noise.
there's going to be cars racing around a track and we're not going to hear it?
Yeah.
The one thing when we looked at the track was we located it close to the freeway where the...
Well, I can hear trucks going up the freeway when they change into low gears, and when that happens at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, it's not really terrific.
And that's...
So if one truck, if I can hear a truck going up the grade, I can imagine how I'm not going to hear race cars going
and it's
all
now.
around the track.
That's a really
You hear it now.
What kind of jobs will be available? You anticipate will be available?
We have about 20 service jobs that would be created out there.
The company is founded and managed by a pretty unique mix. We have Navy SEALs, which my background. We're looking at creating close to 200 jobs, and those are permanent jobs on our property.
Joe Shuda from Ocotillo. Yeah, I'm wondering about your credibility and what I'm even hearing from you right here. So I'm looking at your open letter to the Ocotillo community, and it says current land use, and I see exaggerations and misconceptions here. It says the current land is strewn with litter, used cartridges and shell case. Well, it's not strewn with litter. There is some litter out there. So and it says due to annual grading. Now there has been some grading, but there is no annual grading. So when I'm seeing what you have put out in your writing, and you have already put misconceptions here, you've already basically lied here as to what the current land use is, and then I listen to you here, and your credibility has already been a little bit eroded, or quite a bit eroded, when you put it in writing, and then I'm hearing you say something that we can't back up until after the fact.
Webb is incredibly selfish. Most of his actions are calculated to get the highest personal return to himself, while giving the least amount possible.
$10,000 can make a difference for college students. Win Zero, a business focused on bringing a law enforcement facility to the Imperial Valley, donated the large amount to the Imperial Valley College Foundation during a special luncheon Wednesday.
We're after a long partnership. So this, for us, this is our way of saying thank you to the community in the valley that have already been very supportive of the project.
As previously shown, Webb wants to gloss over the truth, convey that his company was actually well supported, and it was merely the deeds of a lone individual who created any perceptions to the contrary.
My name is Tom Hembry. I'm the current elected president of the Ocotillo No Mirage Area Community Council. And we're out here today at the site where Win Zero wants to put in a what they're calling a sportsman's range and a driving track.
Talk to me about the facility and what the community is saying about it.
Well, I would say that minimum of 80% of the community is not in favor of it. And we're worried that they'll set up an outdoor range and bring in someone like a contractor like Blackwater to finish off the project and do that mercenary contracting type training out here in this part of the desert. And I know the community is not in support of it.
And why is that?
We've been misled by the Win Zero group on a couple of occasions, and their credibility with the community is going to be real tough for them to overcome.
As previously referenced, Webb further attempted to revise history by writing,
"The groundswell of opposition from the community was all a smokescreen. The community had nothing to do with it, the whole thing was fabricated."
So naturally, the unconcerned community filed a lawsuit against Webb and his company. Because that's something that generally unconcerned folks do. Throughout all of Webb's community hearings, he was told time and again why his proposed facility was neither desired, nor really feasible.
I'd like to the history of the place. I was here in '76 when it had the hurricane come through, and you had a lake down there. And if you had anything in that area where you want it now, it would be gone. So I just like to put that in as you think about it. Although we're going to have a lot of expense going into it, and have it washed away overnight wouldn't be too good.
Yeah, absolutely. And Phil.
Webb became acutely aware of this flooding issue when over Labor Day weekend 2009, the location of his company's proposed facility was inundated with floodwaters. The Web of Lies continues. Here Webb is talking about the status of the Wind Zero facility development.
We're just finishing up our environmental impact report, which is looking favorable.
So Webb is pitching that Wind Zero's environmental impact report was favorable. Among the vast number of environmental problems that Webb's company was really having, he had actually just hired an attorney to try and save his project, after he'd already bought the land, and then discovered the following. Oh yeah. For $1.3 million, Webb purchased the land for his proposed facility. And only after the fact, did he figure out that it sat smack in the middle of a FEMA floodplain. Perhaps most frightening of all, Webb's financial pitch, despite the mounting problems for his company.
We were, a few years ago, relying on traditional bank financing to build this out. So now we've had to go and raise private capital, and that's been challenging, and one of the worst economic downturns in my lifetime, probably. So it's been challenging, but we've been getting it done. So far, so good.
Do you still need capital to open? And if you do, how much do you need? How much would you need to get this facility open tomorrow if you needed to?
So our plan phase 1 is about $15 million. That gets us everything that we need to service the local market. And yeah, we're still trying to nail down our phase 1 financing right now.
On September 12, 2007, Webb purchased his 963 acres of land in Ocotillo from Ms. Donna Perrine. 18 months later, Webb took on $1.35 million in venture capital. Then, a mere 6 months later, the following legal advertisement posted in the Imperial Valley Press for 3 weeks, from September 12 to October 2, 2009.
Notice of Trustee Sale. Number 1972-38. Pursuant to Deed of Trust recorded on October 2, 2007, executed by Wind Zero Ranges LLC, as truster. You are in default under a deed of trust. Unless you take action to protect your property, it will be sold at a public sale. The beneficiary under said deed of trust heretofore executed and delivered a written declaration of default and demand for sale. Said sale will be made to pay the remaining principal sum of the notes, to wit, $1,390,127.78.
We're still trying to nail down our phase 1 financing right now.
Webb, why was your land threatened with a $1.39 million foreclosure auction in September 2009? Particularly after receiving $1.35 million in venture capital a mere 5 months prior. Webb further attempted to revise history, and to elicit sympathy, by concocting a false woe-is-me tale. He wrote,
Then things got even worse. A couple of partners turned on me and sued me. I also had to pay out close to $100,000 to settle debts that the company owed. And then my wife let me know she couldn't stick out the marriage anymore.
Webb suggestively wrote this as though, poor him, his ex-wife left him, while he was smack in the middle of hard times. This is just patently not true. For the record, Webb's divorce from his first wife was enacted on September 2, 1999. Webb's divorce from his second wife, due in large part to his infidelity, was enacted March 30, 2011. He was divorced for nearly 2.5 years before he was sued by his former business partners, on July 26, 2013. Regardless, the lawsuit brought against Webb by his own partners and investors, all sophisticated business persons, is yet another demonstration of the person Webb really is. Businesses come and go. Some succeed. Most do not. But the vast majority do not end up with lawsuits brought against the CEO by the partners and investors. And certainly not ones that the CEO ultimately loses. Webb was sued for using assets of the company for his personal use. Webb was sued for withdrawing funds from the company's accounts for his personal use. Webb was sued for conspiring to bankrupt his own company by transferring all of the company's assets to himself. Webb was sued for designing this scheme to delay and defraud the company's creditors. For those who really know Webb, unfortunately, none of this is shocking in the least. With his business on its last legs, and as previously stated, Webb throwing any content he could on the internet to cover up all the accrued negative items about himself, he slid into a contributor role at military.com. There he spent time writing small pieces about special operations and tactical gear. And then, no shock here, he eventually did what Webb always does. Ward Carroll, a retired Navy commander, F-14 pilot, and then editor at military.com, captured it best when he said,
In 2010, Webb became a contributor at military.com. We were making plans to really elevate him in the company, and he was all about it. I was stunned when in 2012, Webb abruptly revealed plans to launch his own site. He'd been building SoftRep, while under contract with military.com, with the help of the company's web designers and a sales rep. To top it off, he immediately proposed selling the new site to military.com executives, who declined. What an underhanded, Machiavellian move. We cut ties right there, ended our contract under the do not compete clause, and had to fire 3 people.
So all of this is just a broad intro to the background of Mr. Brandon Webb. He is, by the very definition, a con man, not completely unintelligent, and with bouts of charm here and there that lets him play his games. There's much more to come, as this only starts to scratch the surface of Mr. Webb, but here are a few placeholders until the next round. In this world where the loudest talkers run rampant, every now and then the biggest blowhards need to be put in check. When it comes to Webb, the sheer destruction that befalls everything he touches, the SEAL teams, his wives, his business partners and investors, friendships, etc., warrants at least a warning to others. Sleep well, Brandon, you knew that eventually it would all catch up to you, right? The rain is coming.